Hello and welcome to the Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm your host, Macy Renee, and we are going on a journey together, my friend. If you've been looking for a podcast geared towards your growth, self-awareness, navigating your brain's daily mind drama, and deep inner work to become your highest and best self, you are in the perfect place. Let's get started. Good morning. Happy Monday, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming Your Highest Self podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm excited to be talking to you this week because our household was sick last week, which is why you didn't get a new episode. And to be quite honest, it's been a real struggle for me. I have dealt with a lot of homesickness here recently. I did really good the first 4 months that we moved out here, but in the last few weeks, I have felt immense amount of just feeling homesick and wanting to be with my family. Also, my sister had her baby, and so I'm seeing all the pictures and I'm seeing, her new child on Instagram, and I can't believe that she was born, mid-December, and I'm still not home to have seen her or held her yet. And I also think that in the last few weeks, I have felt more grief losing my great grandparents than I did the years that I lost them. I think whenever I lost them, I just kind of went numb and in disbelief. And that's kind of been, I guess, a coping mechanism that I didn't even realize that I had. I just thought that I was okay. And I will tell you that when you move away from your comfort zone and everything you've known to be comfortable, you really meet a new side of yourself and you really learn a lot about yourself when you can't distract yourself with people, places, or things that have been very comfortable to you as well. So it's one thing to buffer with your normal things, right? Maybe you buffer with alcohol or drugs or your social media addictions of scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, or overeating, over exercising, sex. Like there's so many ways that people buffer and distract themselves from, like maybe our deep inner work or just kind of knowing what's going on deep in our subconscious mind. But then if you move all of that aside and you get away from people that you're used to spending a ton of time with, your family, your friends, the places you hang out, the places you go, when you get rid of all of that kind of autopilot, this is just what I do, this is who I am behavior. So, AKA, take my husband and I, you took us out of our normal environments and placed us into a brand new environment. I mean, we did that ourselves. I'm not saying anybody else did that. We did that. But when you do that and you don't have those same places to go and those same people to be around, and you're kind of left with yourself and each other, he shows you a lot. So I think the first 4 months it was really new and it was kind of like, this is great. There's a lot of newness and adventure, to be had. And then when the dust kind of settled, it was like, whoa, oh my gosh, I don't have my friends, I don't have my family. I've gone, outside of going home for Thanksgiving, I've gone months and months and months without girlfriend interaction, without lunches, charcuterie boards, champagne days, like all the fun things that I would do when I wasn't working. And so I've been spending a lot of time working, 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 working. And when I finally kind of hit a wall and was like, I need a break, and realized that when I'm taking a break, I have none of my stuff that I, used to do to fill my time. All of a sudden, I think that loneliness started to come up and homesickness started to come up, and it's really affected my mood. And you add getting sick on top of it and trying to be a caretaker, the past 11 days, it's been very challenging for me. And yeah, that's kind of what's been going on with me. So you probably haven't seen me a lot on social media or like, keeping up with my blog here in recent weeks 'cause we've had so much going on between being sick and then me just navigating my emotions. Like, I am all about being open and transparent and sharing anything and everything with you guys, but also whenever I'm navigating through it, sometimes it doesn't feel good to just show up and put it all out there in the moments that it's happening. At times I will, but not always. And I've kind of been feeling the pull to, step away from social media when my brain feels foggy and overwhelmed. And so, I have that way. But I am excited because we are going back home and I'm going to stay a couple weeks and just fill up my soul with the people that feel really good to me and freaking squeeze my brand new niece and just enjoy any seconds that I get to spend with her. She's changing so much even in photos, and I just can't wait to get home and be with my people and then come back with like refreshed and energized and charged from being with them. So, I'm sorry for that long intro, but that's kind of an update of what's been going on. So, here's what I love. I've had so many of you all that are new listeners or you've been listening for a long time reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook and let me know that you're listening. You've let me know, where you're listening from. And you also, several of you have let me know things that you want to hear on the podcast. And I absolutely love that. I'm always, always open to hearing what you all would like to hear if you haven't heard it yet. And someone messaged me, actually a few of you. And so the next few episodes you're going to be hearing in the weeks to come, today and the weeks to come, are going to be episode suggestions that have come through inbox based on questions that I had. Now, this week I got several different questions, but I decided to start with this one, and it was navigating narcissism. And I think that this is such an important topic to discuss because, one, narcissism, the word narcissism, is thrown around a lot. We have to be kind of careful with that because narcissistic personality disorder is something that has to be diagnosed. And I think sometimes when people have one or two of the behaviors, it's very easy to qualify them as a narcissist. And think of like any time you've been labeled something that you're not, how painful that can be. And also think about if maybe something hasn't been diagnosed, but a lot of people are telling you that this is you, this is you, this is you, and these are the qualities you have. When you hear it enough, you start to believe it. So I don't say that to dismiss the fact that narcissism exists and that also you may be dealing with someone in your life that is in fact a narcissist. I am kind of wanting to highlight that the word gets thrown around a lot sometimes for individuals that have one or two of the qualities, and then we justify all of that under something that they're not even diagnosed with. So we just want to be kind of careful in how we are throwing things around. The same way when we say, like, well, I'm OCD about that. We can definitely have moments where we are particular about certain things and we like things a certain way, but we want to be mindful for the people who are actually diagnosed with something that we're, just watching how we're throwing around words like, oh, I'm super OCD. Because I definitely have things I'm particular about, but I'm not diagnosed with any kind of OCD. So I just want to throw that out there as something to be mindful about. But we are going to talk about navigating, narcissism because I think it is a very important topic. And I was asked, like, how do I navigate this and not lose myself in the process? And so maybe one day on here also I will get my friend Lena back on here, who is a licensed therapist as well. She coaches and she's a licensed therapist, and she can offer her clinical insight into this. So I'm going to approach it from the coaching side and from the emotional intelligence side. I'm not giving any kind of therapeutic advice. I want to make that very clear. I am not a licensed clinical psychologist or psychiatrist. I'm licensed as an occupational therapist, so I did see this stuff in my line of work, especially as a student, but I never used my own occupational therapy profession to serve mental health, although I could have. So I just want to be mindful of that. I want you to be mindful of that I'm going to be approaching this from my own experiences and from a coaching perspective about how you can navigate this if it's something that you're going through in your life. I am extremely experienced with dealing with this. It was dealt with in my childhood. Narcissism is something that is prevalent in our family and comes with some diagnoses. And it was very challenging as a child. But before I go into that, I do want to share what Google says about narcissistic personality disorder. And the way that they classify this is symptoms include an excessive need for admiration, disregard for others' feelings, an inability to handle any criticism, and a sense of entitlement. People may experience callous and unemotional traits, disregard for others' feelings, excessive need for admiration, or social isolation. There's different types of narcissism. I'm not going to go into all of that, but I do want to kind of cover what this means for you when you're navigating it, because I have had clients that were married to a diagnosed narcissist. I've had friends that were in relationships with narcissists. I grew up experiencing this in my own family, and I will tell you that it can be extremely what is the word to even put it into perspective? Like the way that it can impact you and change you under the radar is pretty profound, because a narcissist has this innate ability to manipulate situations and honestly use their power to make you wrong and question yourself. And I will say that that is probably the hardest part about navigating life with someone who is in fact a narcissist, is that they have this possessive, controlling quality about themselves, and it feels like as a recipient that you are constantly walking on eggshells. So what this means is a lot of times people who are in a relationship with someone who is a narcissist, or have been raised by someone who is a narcissist, or if you're working under someone who is a narcissist, you start to question everything you do and even who you are, because they have this way of making you wrong and manipulating the situation, changing the story around something that happened. You could know that you were wearing yellow socks, and you could actually see that you're wearing yellow socks, and they have this profound ability to say, actually, you were wearing blue socks. And it sounds insane, but when you've been beat down enough, you will start to question if you're even wearing yellow socks, or if in fact they are blue and you're crazy and you don't actually know what the heck you were wearing. And a lot of times, if you sense that they're becoming upset, or that their behavior is going to change and you're going to be the one that suffers through the emotional baggage of that, then oftentimes what happens is this underlying sense of people pleasing comes about, because you don't want to upset them. You don't want to rock the boat. So that means that you suppress a lot of your own personality in order to make sure that they're happy. And what it does for them is it feeds their ego. So ego is a huge piece of narcissism as well. And also, if they were to take an emotional intelligence test, right, the ones that I provide with my one-on-one coaching clients, if they were to take that, they would score likely really high under self-regard, because from their ego, they believe that they're the best. They cannot do any wrong. they don't see the problem. So here's the thing also. So let's say you are in a relationship with a narcissist, or they're now an ex in your life, and maybe you're co-parenting, because I've had clients do this, and also people reach out, and ask me, like, how do you even cope with someone that you're having to deal with who's a narcissist? And the challenging thing about it is that you can't argue with a narcissist, right? Because they're never wrong. That's truly what they believe. They are never, ever wrong. So no matter what, you're not going to get through to them. And whenever you're trying to get through to them, that's whenever they twist it around. You're the one that's wrong. You're the one that's crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And it can be extremely toxic and abusive. And so then you get stuck in an abuse cycle. Now, the challenging part is not losing yourself completely when you're in this situation. So, what do you do? What do you do when you've either been a victim of this in your childhood or your adulthood? So what are the next steps? That's what we talk about in coaching, right? If you're going through a lot of challenging, I would say, like, remnants of their abuse, then therapy might be a really good starting point, because you can revisit the past and everything that they've done and be validated for all the things that they've done and they've said and how it's shaped you up into this point. But when you're ready to really, like, heal and move forward and take your power back, you have to know that there is no benefit to arguing with a narcissist who is never wrong in their own mind, okay? So the first step is having awareness of even how you're triggered when you're interacting with them, okay? Because what happens is your inner child that's wounded wants to defend you, okay? So for instance, if I am dealing with a family member that is like this, and I'm trying to advocate for something or share something, and they immediately shut me down or dismiss me or tell me my emotions are wrong or that my feelings are wrong, and I'm not self-aware, I may become emotionally triggered, try to over-explain and exert a lot of my energy trying to prove my point, trying to make sure that I'm heard and validated. And it gets nowhere, except for it only fuels their ego, because they see you flustered and they see you upset, and they get like some sort of satisfaction from knowing that they're able to manipulate your mind and play these different games. So self-awareness is going to be huge in knowing, how do I become triggered when I'm around this person? What happens inside of me? That is huge. What happens inside of me? What is it that they say or they do that then gets me questioning myself? And where can I honor my own truth? Where can I recognize whenever I'm in an interaction with them, that I begin to lose myself? That work is for you. That work is not for you to explain to them. They're not going to get it. They're not going to understand. If they are a diagnosed narcissist, you have a better chance of, like, I don't know, throwing, something that's not even sticky at a wall and getting it to stick versus talking to someone who is truly a narcissist. I mean, it's sad, but it's honestly true. It's like you could probably run through brick easier than getting through to someone who is diagnosed with narcissism, because they don't see anything that they've done as wrong. They're not often aware of that. Of course, it can be treated and worked on in therapy. We can never say never with any kind of diagnosis, but it is very challenging, especially because they don't see that they've done anything wrong or that they're doing anything wrong. Okay, so that manipulation takes over, and it can really cause you to lose yourself. So your self-awareness of, like, what is triggering me in this interaction is going to be super important, of you understanding where you kind of feel like you lose yourself and you start questioning your own, like, you start what am I trying to say? You start doubting yourself, like you no longer trust yourself. That's what I'm trying to say. You want to make sure that you're observing like where you start to lose self-trust in your interaction with them. The second thing is boundaries. And I know that it's very difficult to probably set boundaries with someone who's manipulating you, but you have to have boundaries for yourself when you're in situations like this. So let's say, here's the first boundary. I'm just going to give it to you straight. If this person does not have to be in your life in any way, shape, or form, then please do yourself a favor and walk away. If you have the power and the ability to fully walk away and never engage with this person again, that's going to be the best thing for your own mental and emotional health. If you're playing and dabbling and hoping that they change and thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's this, and I get that, because when your mind has been effed with for a very long time, you might think it's possible that they change, because they also have this ability to turn on a switch and be everything you could ever want, and then turn it off and continue to manipulate and perpetuate a cycle. So if you have the ability to walk away from that, do yourself a favor and walk away. Now, what if you can't walk away because you share children with this person and legally you have to co-parent with them? Like, what if legally a judge has in writing that there's 50% custody, right? Or you're going to have to engage with them and their new partner, or however it's set up. In that case, you need to have boundaries for yourself. Now, if you have been in an abusive cycle for quite some time, it might take some practice setting boundaries and upholding your boundaries for yourself. So maybe this looks like the way that you interact with them at the exchange. Maybe in the past, they pull you into arguments, or they tell you, I told you to bring their backpack full of stuff. I did bring their backpack full of stuff. No, you didn't. You didn't bring blah, blah, blah. Yes, I did, right? So you have to think about like how typical interactions maybe go with this person, and you have to decide to set boundaries of what you are and are not willing to do and discuss, and how you're even going to show up to it, okay? So that could be a boundary of, if they start, saying I've done something that I haven't done, I'm simply going to walk away. I'm going to let them know that I'm not going to engage in the arguing with them, and I'm going to walk away. That can feel very challenging, but you have to set up boundaries for your own life and your own mental and emotional health. The way this looks like, if you have maybe like a set of parents or caregivers or family members who are, narcissistic, it can look like the amount of time you're willing to spend with them, like maybe, or even how you're going to interact with them. So let's say it's a holiday event and another family member says, I've invited every single family member for the holidays, not just, the ones that you like. And so maybe you get to decide, do I even go? Like, do I even want to energetically engage in that? And I will tell you too, like in the beginning, when maybe you're still healing, it might be easier not to go. It does take a lot of work and a lot of inner healing and emotional intelligence to show up to something where someone's going to be that maybe you don't particularly like, and not lose yourself. So you can either decide, I'm not going to go and I'm not going to engage because I don't feel strong enough to do that. Rather than blame the other person, you say, I don't have the mental capacity to do it and do it well and do it from my highest self. So if I have the option to choose to bow out for my sake, I'm going to bow out. Now, if you've been working on yourself and you've been healing and you feel very emotionally strong and you feel confident in your boundaries, then you know that nobody can make you feel any type of way without your permission, and nobody can take you outside of yourself without your permission. And so you might decide that I'm going to go, but depending on the interaction, I might walk away. I might let them know I'm not going to engage in that. I'm not going to talk about that. you have to decide like how you want to show up, and that is really the work of being your highest self. So when I have had to show up to things where I know specific people are going to be that have this, personality disorder, I might I might in my mind first say, how do I want to show up to this? Like, who do I want to be no matter how they are being? How do I want to navigate this experience for my sake, for my mental health, for my emotional health? And I might decide ahead of time, I don't want to argue with anybody. I don't want to be pulled into any kind of drama. I don't want to, engage in anything that is going to elicit any sort of negative response or cause a big scene. And there have been several times where I've known that I'm going into an environment with people who are like this. And because I've decided ahead of time my own boundaries, how I want to show up in the world as my highest self, I've been able to navigate it very gracefully. And with that, I will say I'm also, as you begin to heal and really do more and more of this work, you become even more intuitive, and you can kind of feel when things are going to hit the fan. Like, honestly, when shit's going to hit the fan, you can feel it way before it happens, and you can kind of decide how you're going to navigate the experience before it occurs. So I'll give you kind of a open-ended story without too much detail. But years ago, I was invited to a family event, and I knew that some of the people going were not in a good mental headspace. So I decided ahead of time. I had other family members riding with me, and I let my family members that were riding with me to the hour drive know that if they wanted to stay, a prolonged amount of time, that they didn't need to ride with me, because I was going to have strong boundaries around this person. And if this person, did something that wasn't in agreement with who I was trying to be and how I was trying to show up, like if they were going to cause any kind of drama, I wanted to be able to get in my car and go peacefully, not stay for the shenanigans. So I let the family members that wanted to ride with me know, just a heads up, whether we're there for 5 minutes or an hour or 5 hours, when I'm ready to go, I'm leaving. And so if you want free range on when we're leaving, then you need to drive separate. And so these family members were like, no, we'll fully support you. We'll go when you want to go, whether that is 5 minutes or an hour or whatever, and we won't give any fuss about it. So, and I trusted, this set of family members. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we get to the place, and I interact, and I'm kind with these people, and they, I can internally sense that they're not in their right mind, like their headspace is not necessarily in a good place. And so there was a lot going on inside of me, like, okay, there's the potential for this to be a disaster. I stayed true to how I wanted to show up. I was very kind. I had conversations with them. I engaged in a very minimal way. I didn't feed into any of the drama they attempted to pull me in, or any of the manipulation they attempted to pull me in. I stayed true to myself and what I wanted. And I hit at about an hour, this overwhelming feeling came over me that things were going to get a little spicy. And I went to the people, my family members that rode with me, and I said, I feel that things are about to get a little heated and spicy based on kind of reading the environment and what my spirit is telling me. And before any of that happens, I would like to bow out. So let's say our goodbyes, if that's cool with you, because you're riding with me, unless you want to get another ride home. And I'm going to bow out. And, of course, the few that invited me were a little upset that I was leaving as early as I was, but I was just like, something in my spirit is not setting right, and I want to leave this event on a good note and be proud of myself and how I've shown up, and so I'm going to leave. We didn't even make it the hour drive home before my phone was exploding with all of the drama that went down like 15 minutes after we left, and it was a cluster F. It was so intense. I was very thankful that I listened to my gut and that I had boundaries for myself and that I knew how I wanted to show up. And so that is the next thing that I will really try to drive home for you guys, is that you can't change other people. You can only meet them where they're at, as painful as that may be. And what creates a lot of self-suffering for us is when we want other people to be different than who they are. It's you creating more suffering for yourself. I could want that person to change all day long and wish that things were different and have all the they should do this, they shouldn't do this all day long. But at the end of the day, I'm only torturing myself because the only person that can change them is them. And that's if they're even motivated to do it. And when you add different, mental health disorders on top of that, it's almost an impossible feat unless they have a team of people that are helping them do that and resources that they're willing to partake in to get to that place. And so don't torture yourself. If this is something that you, again, cannot walk away from, like legally I can't walk away from it, then you have to have very strong boundaries in place. And I will say, if you've been beat down for a long time, it may feel very impossible. And that's why I think that reaching out and speaking to a therapist if you're in the midst of the hurt and the trauma is really important. And then, once you're ready for coaching, it can be extremely powerful to say, I need help with boundaries. I need help with self-awareness. I need help with, emotional mastery and emotional intelligence. And I need help knowing how to navigate this because they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And when you're ready for that, then that's where, maybe a coach can help you, get to the next step of your life where you are healthy enough to navigate this in a decent manner. So I hope that this episode helps you, and maybe I will be able to get again, a therapist on here that can also offer their perspective of how maybe they have their clients navigate this. But I did want to share my own experience of how I've navigated this. And I will say that the hardest part is the way that you sometimes lose yourself and question yourself and your lack of self-trust after you've navigated, these types of relationships with people, because you really do start to question everything that you thought was true, because they have such a strong ability to manipulate the situation, and cause so much kind of depression and anxiety that getting stuck in a cycle can be very prevalent. So I will say that hugs to you if it's something that you're navigating. And, if you ever need anything, reach out, whether that is help, maybe finding a therapist that can serve you. I'm happy to help you with that. And if you're to the point where maybe you've already been working with a therapist and you're ready to go the coaching side of, I really want to learn boundaries and I want to learn how to stop buffering and numbing my emotional pain from this. And I want to be able to be emotionally intelligent around this person, even when it feels like they're pulling me back into a dark place. I want to really take my power back and stand in my power and not feel, itty bitty teeny weeny because of how small they have the ability to make me feel in that moment. Like, when you're ready for that, then reach out and schedule a coaching consult, which is free. And that's 60 minutes for you and I to chat to see if one-on-one coaching would be a good fit and if it's something that you'll benefit from. So I hope that you all have an amazing week this week, and stay tuned for next week's episode. Bye.